Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. It's me Hinata Harem. I recognize the voice right away. Ah. Come in Neji ni-san. I turned away from my big window in my room to the door where my now 18-year-old cousin stood. After his father, my uncle, had died in battle against the Kingdom of Red Moons, my father took him in as his own. The royal family, the Hyugas, are divided into two branches. The main branch who rules the kingdom, and the side branch who serves as the royal guard. Neji had been trained ever since he was 4 years old, so he was a very skilled and talented warrior. Which is also why my father had made him captain of the royal guard in an age of only 15. You've seemed a little absent lately. Hinata Harem. I still don't get why he was both talking and acting so formal, even though I've told him so many times not to. Neji, please. Call me Hinata, and loosen up, will you? You are not on duty right now, I smiled at the now flustered captain. Hi. I walked over and picked up a flower from a vase on my desk. So, what brings you here? I asked him while smelling the lavender-colored rose, my favorite flower. Hi. Your father seeks to see you. I looked at him rather surprised. What? My father? See me? I was so confused, he never wanted to see me. Hi. Is now a good time? I looked dumbfounded at him. Hinata. Suddenly I realized what was happening, so I hurried over to the mirror to look at my hair. How does my hair look? Hinata. How is my dress? Oi. Hinata. Maybe I should dress differently. Hinata. Neji practically shouted. Huh. I looked at him with a dress in one hand, and a brush in the other. Hinata. You look fine, he said after he let out a big sigh of his. I looked at him again. Really? Really? He held out his arm for me to accept it. Shall we go? I smiled and locked arms with him. We shall. Halfway out the door I asked him again. Maybe I should change my dress. Sigh. Get back here, you thief. I jumped on my horse and rode away as fast as I could. Ha. Just try and catch me. I didn't even have to tell the horse where to go, he knew exactly where we were headed. We arrived at what you could call a shed, but it was big enough for a 17-year-old boy and his horse. I jumped off the horse, and while making sure no one was watching, I walked inside with my horse right behind me. Inside wasn't much better than the outside, there were no furniture, and there was hay almost everywhere together with some few broken windows. I am very glad that it's summer right now, this place is horrible during the winter. There Blaze, I said to my horse as I took the saddle off of him. It's only Blaze and I who lives in this dump. I don't remember much of my past, but what I do remember is that my parents gave me Blaze when I was 5. I remember my father's kind and strong eyes, and my mother's smile full of love. Everything else about them is blurry. One morning short after my 6th birthday, I find myself in a strange new place. The look was different, the smell was disgusting, and the sounds was very loud. When I tried to think back on why I was here, my head began to hurt like crazy and my sight got blurry. I later found out that I was at someone called Jiraiya's home. I lived together with him for 8 years. But on my 14th birthday, some thieves came to our home and ended Jiraiya before my eyes. I managed to escape on Blaze that day, and swore that I would get revenge on the group that had Jiraiya. The Akatsuki. In my now 3, almost 4, years of living alone I've managed to some friends. First we have Inuzuka Kiba and his oversized dog Akamaru. Kiba is the local vet's son, so he often helps me out if something is wrong with Blaze. Next up we have Nara Shikamaru. His dad works as the king's personal advisor and strategist, so they have a very good income. Luckily they aren't as many other snobs around the city, since they often lets me, an orphan, eat with them and also helps me financial sometimes. I really owe them my life. Last up I have, or used to have, a boy named Sasuke. He was an orphan like me, but had a brother somewhere. Suddenly Sasuke found some relatives in the kingdom of Red Moons, and I have never heard from him ever since. And of course, I have my Freezer horse Blaze, who I have been through a lot with. Yo, Naruto. I snapped out of my thoughts and turned around, only to see Kiba and Shikamaru stand in the door. Oh, it's you guys. What's up? I made my signature smile as I started to brush Blaze. Can you please tell us why people are looking for a yellow-haired boy with a black horse? Shikamaru asked, obviously knowing why. I started to blush. Heh. Sigh, damn it, Naruto. Why don't you go find a job instead of stealing all the time? Kiba asked me. Because no one needs a stable boy, and it's the only thing besides fighting that I can do, I replied him. Actually, Shikamaru started. My dad told me that the king himself are looking for a stable boy to look after the royal horses. I looked dumbfounded at him. Really? Wow. That's amazing. Let's go, guys. I sprinted out of the house. Oi, Naruto. Wait up. Hi, Hinata. Come in and close the doors. Hi, father. I stepped further into the room and closed the doors for no one else to enter. Oh, hello, Shikaku-san. Next to my father stood Nara Shikaku, his personal advisor, and a very kind person to talk with when needed. Harem, he replied and bowed for me. I stood in front of my father's desk, with my hands slightly folded, resting on top of my dress. I would have been calmer if Neji Ni-san was here beside me telling me everything would be fine. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. When I looked at Shikaku-san again, he smiled at me. Phew. At least I know it's good news then. So, my father started. Shikaku tells me you are doing great with your studies. I bowed my head a little. Hi, father. I get high grades in all of my assignments. Just because I am a princess, doesn't mean I have to be a stupid one. So my father has hired a teacher for me named Kurenai. She is very kind to me and she doesn't see a princess, she sees a human like everyone else. I see. My father said. Geesh. Could he at least be a little more happy for me? I thought to myself. No way would I ever say that out loud to my father, he would me. As the heir to the throne, you need to make decent decisions. And as a result of your good grades, I will now give you the power to make one decision. I looked at him confused. You will have to choose the new stable boy. Oi, Naruto, slow down will you? I heard Shikamaru yell. I stopped and waited for both of them to catch up to me. But Shikamaru, this is my big chance. A job on the cast. No more stealing food or money, and no living in that shed of mine. I was so happy just by the thought of it. I've lived in that dump for way too long, now it was time for a change. I know how you feel, Naruto, but you can't just skip that big line. Shikamaru pointed in my direction, and as I turn around my jaw drops. There in front of us was an at least 2 kilometers long line leading to the castle. Naruto. Oi, Earth to stable boy. No matter what Kiba said, I didn't move an inch. My body started to twitch a little. Shikamaru, I am getting a little nervous about Naruto. Kiba started to take small steps away from me. Gah, why does so many people want to be the new stable boy? This will totally ruin my plans for a better life. I jumped up and down in rage, pulling my hair while Kiba and Shikamaru both sat in on the ground in surprise of my sudden actions. Sigh, calm down, Naruto. We will figure out something, Shikamaru said as he stood up and put a hand on my shoulder. I turned my head looking at him, crying like a waterfall. Sobbed Shikamaru. You are such a drag, he said with a smile. Why does all these guys want this job anyway? I know over half of them, and no one know anything about horses. Kiba stated. They probably just want to get close to Princess. She is a beauty, Shikamaru replied. You've met the princess? I asked him. Yeah. My dad is training me to become the next royal advisor, so I've been dragged to the castle many times. Really? Well, how is the princess then? Kiba asked him. Well, she is very smart, but she is not used to being social, which makes her a little bit shy. He looked at me. She is the complete opposite of you, Naruto. Hey, I can be smart too. I yelled at him. Yeah, smart at getting in trouble, Kiba laughed. I grabbed his collar. Why you guys break it up, will ya? Shikamaru said. HMPF. Both of us said, and let each other go. Besides, I continued, that princess sounds like a weirdo to me. Yeah. Anyway, let's go. I have a plan for us to get into the castle without being noticed. Shikamaru started to sprint towards the castle. Kiba and I looked at each other. What? Me choose the next stable boy? I looked surprised at my father. You want me to make Hanabi do it instead? I waved my hands before me. No, it's fine, I can do it. He folded his hands and rested his head on them. Very well. You are dismissed. I curtsied before him. Hi. Thank you, father. I bowed my head before Shikaku-san, and as he did the same I left the room. I closed the doors and stood with my bag against them. I let out a sigh of relief and looked at a big painting of my mother. I did it, Mom, I said quietly. You could have been a little nicer to her, she is your daughter after all. That's Shikaku-san's voice. I leaned my ears against the doors to listen to their conversation. The girl is 17 years old. It's time for her to learn a little responsibility before she takes over the throne. I heard my father say in a calm, but harsh voice. I've had enough responsibility looking after Hanabi after mother died, I thought to myself. I could feel tears forming in my eyes thinking about my past. I know you think like that, Your Highness, but she is your daughter and... Enough. I moved my ears away from the door as I got scared of my father's loud interruption of Shikaku-san. She is my daughter, and it is my choice of how to raise her. I could feel the tears run down my cheeks. Why can't father see that what he is doing is wrong? Daddy, look what I found. I ran towards my father, who together with my mom, sat at a table in the castle's garden and ate brunch. My father welcomed me with open arms and put me on his lap. What did you find, my sweet Hinata-chan? He smiled the kindest smile I have ever seen him make. I found a sakura flower laying on the ground, I said as I held it out for him to see it. My sweetheart, that's a very pretty flower you have found there, my mother said to me while holding Hanabi in her arms. Yes. Indeed it is. But, I looked at my father. But what, Daddy? He took the flower from my hands and placed it in my hair. It is not nearly as pretty as you, my precious daughter. I hugged him and looked at him in the eyes as I said. When I become queen, I will protect you, Mommy, and Hanabi-chan, from every threat we might meet. I woke up with a fast heartbeat and tears rolling down uncontrollable down my cheeks. I pulled my legs up to my face and cried like never before. Apparently, I had fallen asleep while reading my mom's old diary. I quickly found out that I didn't have more than 1 hour before the interviews would begin. Knock knock. Who could this be? I walked over and opened the door, but before I could even say hello, I was getting hugged by my 3 best friends. Ino, whose family is the best florists in the whole kingdom. Tenten, whose family is the kingdom's best weaponsmiths. And Sakura, who is one of the best medics that exist. Hinata, what are you still doing in that dress? You have to talk with at least 1,000 boys. Ino said as she walked over to my closet. Thousand. I am not used to talking to boys, besides Neji Ni-san and Shikaku-san's son, Shikamaru. Yeah, That's why we couldn't come earlier. Because of that 2 kilometers long line, Tenten said before going over to help Ino pick up a dress. I just looked at them with an empty look in my eyes. Hinata, are you okay? Sakura. What should I do? I'm not used to talking with that many people in one day, especially boys. Sakura put her hands on my shoulders. Don't worry, Hinata, you will do fine. Besides, you have us by your side, right girls? She shouted the last pass to the 2 girls who was fighting over which dress I should wear. When they heard Sakura shout at them, they shouted back hi. I can't believe what good friends I have. Thank you. I just managed to say. Sakura gave me a comforting hug, just what I needed, and then we walked over to pick up a dress. We ended up with a lavender-colored dress, with a cherry branch print in dark blue on both sides on the dress. We didn't do much with my hair besides pulling the hair framing my face back in a little loose ponytail, resting on the rest of my loose hair, and of course, I had a little silver tiara to make me look just a little bit royal. When the girls had left to see how the preparations were coming, I sat in front of my mirror trying to control my nervosity. It had been a while since I've been dressed up this nicely. Last time was 7th birthday only 10 months before my mother passed away. I remember my mom was brushing my hair, while singing a song to me. I began to hum the song to myself, but I was interrupted when Ino knocked on the door and asked if I was ready. I looked in the mirror and took a deep breath. Let's do this. Wow, Shikamaru. How did ya know this way to get into the castle? I asked him as we walked down the halls. As I told you before, I've been here many times. It was actually the youngest princess, Princess Hanabi, who showed me that way in. Kiba put his arm around Shikamaru's neck. So Shika, how are we supposed to have the princess talk to Naruto before anyone else? A smile began to form on Shikamaru's face. Well, you could say that the princess owe me a favor. How so? I asked him. Hey. You'll hear that story another time, he said with a mischievous smile. I was walking the halls with Tenten almost right next to me, and Ino and Sakura walking behind me. Fighting as always. This time, about me talking to a cute boy or not. Sire, those 2 ever gonna stop fighting? I asked Tenten. I don't think you should get your hopes up, she replied me. Nay, Hinata, Ino said as she caught up with us. How high are the chances for you falling for a guy today? She had a really mischievous smile on her lips, meaning that she is up to no good. Ino, I started. This is no place to find a guy. I have to show my father how responsible I am. Ino started to pout, as she always does when she doesn't get her will, but then she asked me again. So, if I see any good guys, can I? Sigh, sure. Go ahead, I smiled. Yada. After walking for a while, Sakura came up to me and asked me. Hinata, I know you just said no to Ino. But you are 17 years old. And the law says that you have to marry before you turn 22 inches. I know what the law says, Sakura. But isn't it wrong to marry a guy, if you don't love him? You can't expect love to show up just around the corner. I admit that I have been thinking about it myself. But I just haven't found the right, eep. As I turned the corner, I bumped into someone and fell to the ground. I'm so sorry, miss, are you okay? I opened my eyes, and was met with the most beautiful blue eyes I have ever seen. Guy, I'm so sorry, are you okay, miss? I asked her. My eyes met hers, and she actually had really pretty lavender-colored eyes. Guy, she said, here, let me help you up. I held out my hand to help her up. She hesitated at first, but eventually she accepted and took my hand. Funny, her hand fits perfectly with mine. I helped her up, but was met with not only 1, but 2 fists in my face. Baka. How dare you knock over the princess? I looked up and saw two girls, and pink and a blonde-haired, yelling at me. Ow. What the hell? I held my hands where the girls had hit me. Wait. Did they just say, princess? I looked over at the girl I had accidentally knocked over, and discovered the tiara on her head. I looked at her face, and as she blushed I panicked and kneeled down on one knee. I am terribly sorry, Your Highness. It was an accident. I heard a small giggle and looked up. It's all right. It was only an accident, she said, as she smiled the cutest smile I have ever seen. I couldn't help but to blush a little when I looked at her, but as I looked behind her I saw the pink and the blonde-haired girls looking rather angry at me, and was clearly ready to hit me again if they got the chance. I took some steps back as they looked pretty scary. Both the princess and the third girl, a brown-haired one, couldn't help but to giggle at the scenario they were witnessing. Hinata Harem, Shikamaru said as he stepped forward. Shikamaru-kun. They must be rather close since they call each other by name. I wonder if I can become that close to the princess as well. Wait, what? Hinata, do you remember that favor you owe me? She blushed when Shikamaru mentioned the favor. Hi. She stuttered. Kya, so cute. What? Why am I thinking this? When Shikamaru-kun asked me if I remembered the favor, I blushed. I could never forget that day. I caught a glimpse of the blonde-haired boy that I bumped into just a short while ago. When he saw that I was looking at him, he blushed and looked away. He is rather handsome. Stop, Hinata. You are not looking for a guy. You have a mission. I need you to me that favor now, Shikamaru-kun continued. I looked at him surprised. And now, but I was on my way to do the interviews. Shikamaru-kun only smiled. That's the favor. I need you to interview this guy first. He clapped the boy's back, making him almost fall toward me. I looked at the boy, who was only smiling at me. Well, that's a smile I won't get out of my head. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned my head and saw Tenten with a big smile on her face. Don't worry, Hinata. We got plenty of time before the interviews. She could clearly see that I actually did want to speak with this boy. I smiled back and managed to say, thank you, moving only my lips. I looked back at the boy and said, well, guess I have time for a quick talk. The boy looked at me and smiled. Really? That's great. He practically shouted in excitement. Oi Naruto, calm down will ya? His friend with the red fangs on his cheeks said. Oh, right, sorry. So his name is Naruto, I can remember that. So. Should we go in here? Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, he said as he bowed. I could clearly hear the girls giggle behind me. Sigh, they will want to talk about this later, I just know it. Well then, Naruto-kun. Follow me. I blushed furiously as I turned around, and walked towards the door. I followed her into a room with a big round table in the middle of the room, with a big world map on the table, and chairs surrounding it. What is this room? I asked her as I looked around. Never in my life have I seen such a big and nice room. I almost felt at home. This is the strategy room where my father and Shikamaru-kun's father plans the battles and the economy of the kingdom. She sounded a bit sad as she told me about the room. I don't know if it's because of the room, or the talk about her father. But either way, I wanted to comfort her. So, Naruto-kun. She started. Tell me, why do you want to be a stable boy? I looked at her. The sun shining through the window hit her head perfectly, making her look more beautiful than any other girl I've ever seen. Wow. Quote. What is it? As she asked me this, I snapped out of my thoughts. Gomen. It's just. I started to blush like a mad. I guarantee you, my face was as red as a tomato. Just what? She asked me with a smile. Just. Ah, you will just laugh at me. No. Tell me please. I want to know. She walked closer to me. Sigh, okay. You asked for it, I began. The sunlight made you look very beautiful. I looked at him in surprise and of course with a big blush across my face. Many young men have tried to get a job at the castle, just to get near me. Was Naruto-kun not any different? Is that why you wanted to become a stable boy? I looked down at my feet and was on the verge of tears. Just to get near me, I could feel a single tear running down my cheek. I would never to that, I heard him say. I looked up at him, only to see a determined facial expression. To get near me. Huh. I looked up to see her face, but it was directed towards the ground. Great. I've made the princess sad. Good job, Naru Baka. I thought to myself as I saw a tear of hers hit the floor. I clenched my fists. I would never do that, I said with a serious voice. She looked up at me with a hurt and confused face. I fell to the floor. Gomen. Gomen, I never wanted to hurt you. There was a moment of silence before I felt a hand on my shoulder. He suddenly fell to the floor. Gomen, Gomen, I never wanted to hurt you. I couldn't believe what was happening. A boy was down on both his knees, bowing and apologizing for something he did. I could see that he wasn't like many other boys. He was different, but in a good way. I sat down on my knees and put a hand on his shoulder to get his attention. As he looked up, I smiled a, hopefully, comforting smile. You don't have to apologize, it was me who thought the worst of you. I should be the one apologizing. He looked up at me. Oh, those blue eyes. I got up and offered him my hand to help him up. He took it with a smile and now we both stood looking at each other. Maybe we should try this over, I managed to say, still thinking about his eyes. Yeah, heh, that sounds like a good idea, he answered back. I started off by a curtsy. My name is Hyuga Hinata. He took his left hand behind his back and took my hand in his right. He bowed and kissed my hand. Uzumaki Naruto, he said as he looked into my eyes. I couldn't help but to blush since he acted like such a gentleman. There aren't a lot of those out there. Naruto-kun, tell me about yourself. This girl, she ain't as weird as I first thought she was. No, she is actually very kind. I always thought that being a royal would make you a total ego-centered bastard, who enjoyed making people do all the dirty work. But I could clearly see that it wasn't the case for this girl. I can't wait for the day that she will become queen of this land. Naruto-kun, tell me about yourself, she started. Hi, I'm 17 years old and I live alone with horse. Oh, you have a horse? What kind? She asked excited. It's a black Freezer horse called Blaze. Really? I love freezers. So you must know a lot about horses then. Hi. I know practically everything there is to know. She suddenly became very excited when I mentioned Blaze. Maybe I should take her out for a ride on Blaze someday, I thought to myself. I don't have a lot of friends, but those I have are great, and I never want to see them hurt, or struggle with anything alone. Wow. He is a very kind friend. I wish I could become just as good friends with him like his friends are. Knock knock Hinata. You are getting late for the interviews, Tenten said as she knocked on the door. Ah, hi, I'll be right there. I looked at the blonde boy standing before me. I'm so sorry Naruto-kun. But I have to go now. He gave me a kind smile as he took my hand again. I understand. He kissed my hand and stood up straight again. I am glad you took your time to talk with me. It was an honor, and a pleasure, he said as kind as I've ever heard anyone speak. And no, it was nothing. And the pleasure was all mine, I said as I curtsied before him. As I was talking to all the other young men and boys in the line, I couldn't stop thinking about Naruto-kun. His calm and strong blue eyes, together with his kind smile full of love. After good 4 hours of talking to the young men, who by the way knew nothing about horses, I quickly concluded who I wanted to employ. So Hinata, have you picked a guy yet? Sakura asked me. Peef. Of course she has, just look at that smile, Ino stated. Ever since we left that place, I haven't stopped thinking about the princess. She was so not what I thought she was. No, she was much better. Oi, Naruto, stop dreaming about the princess, Kiba said as he hit my head. Hey, was not. Right, whatever you say, he answered back. Why you little? I was just about to grab his collar when Shikamaru grabbed my shirt and pulled me back. Naruto, just drop it, you can't hide it. Besides, nothing could ever happen between you two. I crossed my arms and pouted. HMPF, I know that already, I continued walking. It's not like I like her like that after just one encounter anyway. As I walked, I heard both of them let out a big sigh. After walking around town for about an hour or two, I finally got home to the dump I call my home. I was welcomed home by Blaze, who right away searched my clothes for an apple with his muzzle. Hey boy, want an apple? He looked at me stupid, of course he wanted an apple. I took one out of my pockets and gave it to him. I smiled happily as I watched him eat something that I gave him. If it was Kiba or someone else who had tried to give him something, he would have hesitated, but not with me. As he finished eating, he pushed his head against my chest as a thank you. Heh heh, you are welcome buddy, I kissed his muzzle and hugged him. I really have no idea what I would do without him. I told him all about the castle and my encounter with the princess. She was kind, and she sees everyone as equal. Oh, how I hope I get that job so that you can meet her, and she can meet you. People would say I was weird for talking to my horse as if it was a human being. But when a human and his pet gets a strong bond, they understand each other better. At least that's what Kiba have told me. Knock knock Uzumaki Naruto, I turned around in surprise. Great. What did I do now? It knocked on the door again. Hi. I'm coming, I yelled. I opened the door and saw at least 3 men, standing with their helmets under their arm. They all had long hair, tied back in a loose ponytail, and they all had the same kind of eyes as the princess, except that these seemed empty, and filled with sorrow. The man who knocked on my door wore a white armor with the royal family's weapon crest on his chest, and a larger on the back of his dark blue cape. Uzumaki Naruto, I looked at him rather frightened. Hi, mount up, you are coming with us. Geesh Hinata, relax a little will you? I looked at Ino. What do you mean? I am relaxed. Truth be told, I was not relaxed at all. Neji Nisan has been sent out to get Naruto-kun. I don't know why my heart is beating this fast, just the thought of him makes my heart race and my cheeks blush. You act like you like this boy, Sakura stated. I was surprised by her comment and blushed. You do. They all looked at me surprised, making me blush even more. No wa. I've only met him once. They looked at me, not saying anything. I looked away from them. Stop looking at me like that. They burst into laughter by my embarrassment. What's this? Tenten said as she looked out the window. Tenten, what's wrong? Sakura asked her as she and Ino ran to the window where Tenten was sitting. They started to giggle, so I decided to walk over to them. What's going on? I asked them. They turned around with an evil smile. I looked out the window. Unfortunately, the girls weren't prepared for what I would do and didn't catch me. I fainted. It felt weird going through the gates when I just, few hours ago, went through a hidden entrance to get inside the castle. I was too busy not being seen earlier, that I didn't notice all the amazing buildings and gardens inside the castle walls. There were guards everywhere doing different things. Some was practicing martial arts in one of the gardens, and some was practicing their sword skills by sparring with each other. There were even some who sat and read books or was painting a picture. Wow, was the only thing that could get out of my mouth. Don't get used to it, stable boy, you belong in the stables, the captain riding in front of me said. I know that, and can you smile at all? You've been acting like a grumpy old man ever since you picked me up. He was clearly annoyed by my words. He let out a sigh before he said, there is a reason why I was picked as the captain. And that reason wasn't because I was smiling or laughing, but because I was, and still am, the best at doing what I do. I suddenly burst out in laughter. Oh Captain, you and I are gonna be great friends. HMPF. We arrived at the royal stable and it was huge. Each horse had space that looked like 3 boxes, including Blaze. The royal stables had 5 horses in total that I have to take care of. Besides having a place to work, I was also given a little house to live in. It was a one-roomed house, with no broken windows at all. It even had a little fireplace where I can cook if I wanted to. I also had my own bed with a pillow and several blankets. I believe you can figure out yourself where all the stuff you need is, right? The captain asked me. I turned around and smiled at him. Hi, Captain. HMPF. He began to walk towards the castle doors. Good luck, stableboy. The name is Naruto, ya know, I yelled at him, still with a huge smile on my face. He didn't say anything, he just raised his arm in the air as he kept walking. I can't believe the girls are making me do this. Flashback. Hinata. Oi Hinata, wake up. Everything was black and the voices was faint. I slowly began to open my eyes, only to see 3 silhouettes above me. What happened? The 3 girls slowly helped me up on my legs again. Hinata, are you okay? You fainted when you saw that blonde kid, Tenten said as she brushed some dirt off of my dress. I blushed when I suddenly remembered the sight of Naruto-kun. Suddenly Ino's face came closer to mine. Nay Hinata, why are you blushing so much every time we mention Naruto? She asked me with an evil smile on her lips. I shook my head. I'm not. She poked my cheeks. Oh yes you are. You are almost as red as a tomato right now. The 3 of them began to laugh again. I looked in the mirror and saw that Ino was right. I am as red as a tomato. Nay Hinata, why don't you go down and say hi to him? Sakura asked me. I looked at her surprised. I can't do that. Oh yes you can, Tenten said as she practically pushed me out the door. Tenten, wait I didn't get to finish my sentence before the door was closed. End of flashback. What should I say to him? How should I say it? I thought to myself as I was trying to make sure my hair at least looked somewhat good. Why am I even fixing my hair? He is just a normal boy, doing normal work. Without knowing it, I now stood few meters from the stables. I could see him walk back and forth with buckets in his hands. Okay Hinata, you can do this. Deep breath, no need to worry. He is just a normal human being. I did the last few adjustments to my hair and dress. I am sure the girls are having a blast watching me being like this right now. I was so close to just walk back to my room, but the image of Sakura, Ino and Tenten might do to me made me stay. I carefully walked over to the stable doors. Anyo, and Naruto-kun. He turned his head. Oh, Hinata Haim. He put down the buckets and bowed to me. What do I owe this honor? I walked over to him. I just wanted to say, welcome. I blushed as our eyes met. Oh, thank you. Ya know, I looked at him as he put his right hand behind his head and smiled. I am really grateful that you picked me to be the new stable boy. He looked rather embarrassed. I wonder why. Well. Why you were the best of all the people I talked with. He smiled that smile. Hi, I will certainly try to live up to those expectations. There was a moment of awkward silence before my eyes met a beautiful sight. There was a moment of silence before she saw something. I followed her eyes and saw what, or who, she was looking at. Ah, I see that you have spotted Blaze. She looked at me. Is that your horse? Yup. Wanna say hi to him? See, can I? I laughed at he question. Of course you can. He won't bite. We walked over to Blaze, and boy was he happy to see us. There boy, easy now, I tried to calm him down. Blaze, this is Hinata Harem, the person who got us here. I could see that she was a little insecure when she tried to move her hand to his muzzle to pet him. What's wrong, Harem? Huh, oh, and nothing. I better go. She began to walk back to the castle with fast steps, but stopped at the door and looked back at us. See you later, Naruto-kun. I rose my hand. Naruto-kun has been working as our stable boy for some weeks now. Even my father, the forever grumpy man, told me that I had done a great job picking him. Truth be told though, I haven't been at the stables as much as my friends would have hoped I would, and I must admit that I am a little disappointed in myself. So today, I decided to do something about it, and go say good morning to Naruto-kun. I walked down to the stables, nervously, and tried to think of how I could avoid the awkward silence we usually have. Before even realizing it, I now stood in the door to the stables, but Naruto-kun was nowhere to see. 7. Mornings. Eep. I jumped by the surprised, and saw that it was a certain blonde-haired boy, who stood behind me. Gee, good morning Naruto-kun, I managed to say with a blush on my face. I wonder why I keep blushing around him. I thought to myself. So Harem, what brings you to the stables? I can't believe how kind and loving his smile is. And no special reason. Really? You sure it wasn't because you wanted to say hi to Blaze? He said the last part a bit teasingly. I couldn't tell him that the real reason for coming down here was to see Naruto-kun. Well, really? Is that all you can say, Hinata? You big fool, I thought to myself. He put the food he was carrying down, and picked up an apple from one of the buckets. He walked over to Blaze, took a knife from his pockets, and cut it in half. He gave one half to Blaze, who gladly accepted it. I could not help but smile at the scene in front of me. It was nice to see a boy having such a special bond and relationship with his horse. Something I had difficulty relating to. Suddenly I saw a hand reaching out to me. I looked up surprised and saw Naruto smiling at me. Want to try giving the other half to Blaze? He asked. I can't believe it, it was like he was reading my mind. Hi. He led me to his horse. I admit, I was a bit nervous. But something about Naruto-kun calmed me down. He put the half apple in my hands and slowly pushed it towards Blaze's muzzle. Eep. The touch of the tip of his muzzle on my hand surprised me. It was a feeling I have not had for many years. But even though it surprised me, I couldn't help but smile as the horse ate the apple. I slowly moved my hand to his head. I hesitated a bit, but in the end, I couldn't stop my moving. Only a few inches between the flat of my hand and the head of the horse. It was as if Blaze moved his head the last few inches, because my hand was now resting on the calm horse's head. I did it. You know, Blaze really likes you. I looked up at the boy, who now stood beside me. He moved his hand to Blaze's head, as he began to speak. Nay Harem, can I ask you a question? What is this all about? My heart suddenly started racing for some weird reason. Sure Naruto-kun. What do you want to know? I was a bit nervous for what he was about to ask me. My heart even began to beat even faster than before. You don't seem so comfortable around horses. May I know why? He looked sad, or rather worried, as he asked me his question. I removed my hand from Blaze's muzzle and looked down on the ground. Well, I've never really told this to anyone. Not even Sakura, Ino or Tenten, who I usually tell everything. Something tells me that I can trust Naruto-kun. Even though I've only known him for a few weeks. But he is definitely different from all the other people who walks around me every day. When I was younger, my mom taught me how to take care of all sorts of animals, but horses was my favorite animal at that time. The way they looked when they were running freely over the fields in their packs, protecting each other. I wasn't allowed to go out in the stables without an escort. So whenever my mom had time, she would take me there, and let me brush her horse, and even letting me sit on it. I could see that Naruto-kun was actually interested in my childhood story, and listened carefully to what I had to say. So I continued. One day I even got my own horse. Really? What kind? He asked me with a big smile. Oh, I can't remember, it was such a long time ago, that was a lie. I could clearly remember that it was a gypsy horse. I don't know why I didn't tell him that. Oh, well, anyway. What happened then? Alright. Anyo, my mother taught me everything there was to know about brushing, feeding, and also riding, but when my mother suddenly got sick, I couldn't bring myself to go out to the stables, so I didn't spend as much time with my horse at all, but when my mother, I couldn't say the last words. Harem, are you Alricht? He asked with such a concern that I couldn't stop the tear rolling down my cheek. But when my mother, I could see her body tighten up. This wasn't easy for her to talk about, so I couldn't help but to be concerned. Harem, are you alright? I asked her. I saw a single tear running down her cheek. When she looked up at me with a smile on her lips, I was so close to running over and hug her. Her smile said it all. She was hurt and scared. Scared for what? I do not know. But one thing I know for sure, is that I wanted to do everything to get rid of whatever her fear was. She continued her story after she took a deep breath. When my mother died, I needed some comfort. So I went out to the stables, even though I wasn't allowed to. But I chose to do it anyway. I just wanted to run, to get as far away as possible from everything. So I took the saddle for my horse. She wasn't as calm as she usually was, and neither was I. When I was about to jump up onto her back, she reared and I fell to the ground. Neji Ni-san had apparently heard the ruckus. He ran in and got me away from the horse. She took another deep breath. He took his sword and then, she was trying to speak in between her sobs. At that moment, I couldn't care less about the rules. I walked over to her and wrapped my arms around her. I suddenly felt strong arms being wrapped around me. Of course I realized that it was Naruto-kun. I know the rules says that neither I or the stable boy can have a relationship of any sort together. But I couldn't care less. I needed this. I haven't felt such comfort since my mother passed away. I tightened my grip on the front of his shirt and dug my face in his chest. I honestly didn't expect her respond to my hug the way she did. But I know that it helped. We stood like that for a few minutes before we broke apart. I looked at her in concern. Are you alright? I asked her again. She looked back at me with a different smile than before. Hi, arigato, I could tell her smile was more honest and true. The next following days, the Harem visited the stables more and more often. She used the excuse, I wanted to visit Blaze, but I wonder if that is even the truth, but since she has taken such a liking to him, I wanted to take their relationship a step further. Ever since she told me her reason for fearing horses, I have been using Blaze as a kind of medicine. I have helped her getting over her fear, by letting her feed and brush Blaze. It has been a slow progress, but she will soon be completely over her fear, hopefully. Today when she visits the stables I will make her sit on Blaze, back and walk around with her. I know that she is ready for it, but the question is, does she know? As I was cleaning the horses' boxes, I could hear footsteps coming near the stables. I have always had a better hearing than most other people, I wonder why though. During the short amount of time I have worked here, I have begun remembering the different people's footsteps. Neji's is always heavy and fast, while the king's was heavy and slow, but another trait about the king's arrival is the footsteps of several guards who always accompany him. Hanabi Haim's steps were light and fast, and with the company of a guard or two. Hinata Haim's, on the other hand, were much different than the others. She always came alone, and her steps was light and insecure. I bet she sometimes stops up and reconsider whether to continue or go back to the castle, but she never does. These footsteps I am hearing now though, doesn't belong to any of the royal family, but they were still very familiar to me, as I grew up with them. They belong to a boy my age, with his best friend. A gigantic dog named Akamaru. "Oi Naruto," Kiba said as he stood leaning up against the door. I stood up and placed the pitchfork up against a wall. I dried the sweat away from my forehead. "Hey dog boy, what brings you to the castle?" I asked as I walked towards him. My sister was going to check on the king's dog, so I decided to tag along. "Ah, I see, so, did you just arrive or what?" "Pretty much, my sis just entered the castle doors." "Great. Hey, now that you're here, could I get you to take a look at the horses? You know, just to be on the safe side." "Sure thing, Naruto." As Kiba did a check-up on the horses, I continued to clean the boxes. We talked a bit back and forth about how we have been since we saw each other last. Eep. We both looked towards the door where the sound came from, but no one was there. That's odd, I said as I walked towards the door. Akamaru followed me slowly, as if he was on some kind of hunt. As I got closer to the door, I could see a little piece of lavender-colored clothing, and I know only one person who wears that color. I smiled as I looked to the left when I got the door. "Hey Haim, why are you hiding?" There against the wall stood the princess with a face so red, she almost looked like a tomato. She slowly moved her head to the right to look at my face. NNNN Naruto-kun. Suddenly she began to lose her balance, but I managed to catch her before she fell to the ground. "Haim, oi Haim, are you alright?" Her eyes were closed and she didn't respond to my words. Kiba came outside to see what was going on. "Looks like she fainted." "Oi, what did you do to the Haim?" "Naru Baka. He hit me on the head." "Ouch." "I didn't do anything, dog boy." We both looked down at the sleeping princess in my arms. She looked so peaceful, like she had no worries. "Sai, I better carry her inside. She can borrow my bed until she waked up," I said, and lifted her up, carrying her bridal style, and walked towards my little house. "Oi, don't get any ideas, Naru Baka," Kiba said as I walked away. "Damn it, Kiba, what kind of person do you think I am?" Jeesh. As I continued to walk, I could not help but feel like I was being watched. Why is it so warm?" I thought to myself as I began to wake up. I slowly opened my eyes, only to discover that I was not in my own room. I slowly sat up in the unfamiliar bed I was in. "Oh, I see you are awake." Eep. That voice, I know it. I turned my head, only to be met by a certain blonde-haired boy. He had taken off his light beige-colored vest, and his white blouse was not tied together, resulting in a little view of a beautiful muscular chest. I couldn't avoid blushing at both the very good view and situation. Hi, I managed to say. He walked towards me with a cup of water in his hands. "Here, drink this." Arigato. I carefully took the cup and began to drink. "You feel better. You had me worried there for a moment, Haim." He smiled kindly at me. Hi, I am sorry. Hey, no worries. Something tells me that you needed a nap. Huh, how come? Well, he blushed a little bit, and as I looked at him, he looked away. Never mind. Great. Now he made me curious. There was a short amount of silence before he broke it by saying, well, want to join me in the stables? I have a surprise for you. I looked at him. He has a surprise. For me. I thought to myself. I wasn't used to anyone ever doing anything that nice to me. Well, he asked again as he held out a hand to help me up. I smiled at him. Hi. As we got to the stables, Naruto-kun's facial expression suddenly changed. Naruto-kun. Is everything okay? He looked at me with a rather embarrassed expression. Well, I just remembered that I haven't finished cleaning the boxes. I couldn't help but giggle. Hey, why are you laughing? I'm sorry, Naruto-kun giggled, but it's alright. I don't mind waiting. I smiled at him, and apparently, it made him blush. Really? He asked me. Yes, of course. He took my hands in his excitement, making me blush. Thanks, Haim. I won't be long. I was taken back by his actions and just stood there with a surprised look. It came from his throat as he seemed confused by my reaction. That was, until he looked down at our hands. He let go and jumped back in embarrassment. Gomen Haim, he said as he bowed. Anyo. No need to apologize, Naruto-kun. It's alright. He looked up and smiled at me. He really is full of surprises, I thought to myself before we continued walking. As Naruto-kun finished his job, I went to get an apple from a nearby bucket that I could give to Blaze. Thanks to Naruto-kun, I've almost gotten over my fear of horses. I can still be insecure sometimes, and uncertain if I can ever ride a horse again. I really miss it. I miss the freedom you feel when you run over the meadows and grass fields. I miss the special relationship you share with your horse as you let go of the reins and put all of your trust in your horse, that it won't let you fall. Haim. Oi, Haim, everything's okay. I saw a hand waving in front of me, and snapped out of my thoughts. Naruto-kun. Something bothering you? He asked with a confused and concerned expression on his face. No, nothing. I was just lost in thoughts for a moment, that's all. Really? What thoughts? If I may ask, that is. I giggled at his last comment. You may. I was just thinking back to the time where I was riding freely over the meadows. Do you miss it? He asked me while he picked up a saddle. I didn't really put a question mark to what he was doing while we talked. A little. I see. That was all he had to say as a reply. Neither of us spoke a word before we walked to Blaze's box. Anyo. Naruto-kun. Are you going for a ride? I asked him, a tiny bit jealous. I am not. If he isn't going for a ride, then who I? You are Haim. I obviously surprised her when I told her that she was the one going for a ride. She looked at me with eyes wide open. I saw the perfect opportunity to tease her a little bit. You don't trust me? I asked with the most fake hurtful voice I could make. No, that's not it. I do trust you, Naruto-kun, she answered just the way I hoped she would. Why are you laughing? I'm sorry, I said in between small laughs. I was just teasing you, Haim. Her face was completely red from the embarrassment. She looked cute that way though. I heard an upgiving sigh from her, and I couldn't help but to smile at my triumph. You are such a tease, Naruto-kun. That's only because I like people like you. Nicely done, Baka, I thought to myself while I mentally made a facepalm. There were silence in the stables. She was blushing like crazy while looking down on the floor, and I fumbled with putting the saddle on Blaze, stealing small glimpses of her while doing so. My cheeks have never been more red than now. Anyo. Anyo. Both Naruto and I got surprised and looked at the door where the young and careful voice came from. Hanabi. In the door stood my younger sister with two guards at her side. I was old and responsible enough to not go with any, as long as I was inside the castle gates. Besides, I knew that there were guards everywhere, even outside my own room. It's not always great to be a royal. In fact, I even hate it sometimes. Hanabi Haim. Naruto-kun started. What do I have the honor of your visit to the stables? He bowed with his one foot in front of the other and his arms spread to the side, kind of as a friendly tease, and it worked. Both my younger sister and I giggled as he bowed and smiled. Actually, Uzumaki, I am here to get my sister. I looked surprised at her. Huh, me. What for? I don't know, but father wants to see you. Father. I see. I turned to Naruto-kun. I am sorry Naruto-kun, but Hey. Don't think about it Haim. Huh, I'll wait right here for as long as it takes. Shoot. There is that smile again. How can anyone resist it? Arigato Naruto-kun. I will hurry back. He bowed teasingly before me and I couldn't help but curtsy back with a smile. We locked eyes for a few seconds, giving my cheeks a hint of pink color, before I went to Hanabi's side. As we walked away she asked me, what? No. He is just a good friend, that is all. As if my face wasn't red enough, it only became worse as an image of him and I appeared in my head. You just had an image of the two of you on your mind, right? No. My face, red color did not exactly disappear as they continued to talk about it, but I had an excellent comeback up my sleeve. So, Hanabi. Should I tell father about Konohamaru-kun? She turned to me completely red from embarrassment. Don't you dare. Really? Oni-chan. I watched as Haim and her younger sister walked toward the main castle. Suddenly Hanabi turned to her sister. She looked embarrassed. I wonder what happened. However, as I saw the Haim laugh, I knew I had nothing to worry about. It was nice to see her laugh, and by the looks of it, it seems as she shares a great bond with her younger sister. I wish I could have such bond with someone special to me one day. I know that I have Kiba and Shikamaru, but it just feels like something is missing. Oh well, I am glad where I am now. If I could keep this job, at least until the Haim becomes the queen, I won't complain. When the two princesses were gone from my sight I walked over and took off the saddle of Blaze. Sorry pal, have to wait until later. He didn't seem especially happy about that. Hey, not my fault. I looked towards the castle and let out a sigh. King's orders. Not long after Haim left with her sister, there was a new person who stood in the door. Uzumaki. I looked over at the person who spoke. Oh, Neji, funny thing how he calls me by my last name. Most guards at this castle calls me things like scum or loser, some however just called me stable boy. So, Captain, what brings you to the stables? Can you fight? He asked me. I looked confusingly at him. Excuse me. He began taking steps towards me. I asked, if you can fight. Why yeah, why? He smirked as I finally answered his question. Hey, what am I supposed to do with T-Wo? I just barely blocked the sword coming right at me, but I was unprepared and fell to the ground. Oi, what the hell was that about? I asked him rather angry and confused. Get up, was all he said as he prepared himself to attack again. I stood up and prepared myself for whatever was coming. What the hell is all this for? I asked him again. He didn't answer but decided to attack me instead. Luckily I was more prepared this time, and was now blocking his sword with both feet on the ground. I took a tighter grip on my sword as I blocked his attacks coming from all sides. Damn, he is fast, I thought to myself. What I wasn't prepared for was his fist coming towards my chin. I fell to the ground. I stood up again, but I just ended on the ground again every single time. Again Uzumaki. What is with this guy? I thought to myself. Come on Uzumaki, attack me. Neji didn't say it in any teasing way, but he was somehow serious. I took a deep breath and thought. Come on Naruto. You've won all your previous fights while living in this city. This one is not any different. I ran towards him ready to attack. I even tried to mix in some martial arts in my attacks, but he dodged them every single time. I didn't give up that easy, however. As I continued to attack him, I noticed that he began to look slightly nervous. It wasn't anything that was visible by first eye cast. No, you had to look directly into his deep white eyes. By the time I noticed, I couldn't keep attacking him anymore, so I jumped back, creating a distance between us, and tried to catch my breath. Neji put his sword back into his scabbard. Meet me again here tomorrow, same time. Neji, why are you doing this? I yelled as he began to walk away. He stopped and there was a brief moment with silence before he spoke. Keep the sword, I will tell you when the time is right. He began to walk away again. Oi, Neji! I yelled again, but he didn't stop. I stood outside my father's office with Hanabi. We both took a deep breath before we knocked on the door. Yes, come in. We opened the door and walked over to our father, who stood looking out the big window that filled most of the room. You wanted to see us, father. I spoke. Yes. In 40 days' time, we will get important visitors from one of our neighbor kingdoms, and I want you to be on your best behaviors. He turned his head and looked at me. Especially you, Hinata. Huh, why especially me? He turned his head towards the window again. I will tell you when the time draws closer. Now, you are dismissed. Yes, father, both Hanabi and I said. As we left the room, a lot of questions ran through my head. Who could these visitors be? And why was my behavior especially important? Oni-chan, are you alright? Hanabi asked me. Huh, oh, yeah, I am fine. I have got to go back to the stables. See you at dinner, Hanabi. I began to walk away from my sister. Oh, and Hanabi, I said as I stopped and looked at my sister. She looked questionably at me. I put a finger up to my mouth and smiled. Don't say anything to anyone, got it? She did the same thing and smiled back. Hi, I hope Naruto-kun hasn't been bored while I was gone, I thought to myself as I unintended sped up the pace I was walking in. As I arrived at the stables, I looked around to see if I could spot him. Naruto-kun. Yes, milady. Eep. I jumped as I heard his voice. When I looked at him, he had a big smile on his face. You startled me. I am sorry, Haim, but the timing was just perfect, he laughed. Can you ever forgive me? I suspected a little bit of tease in the way he spoke. Ha ha. Very gunny. Hey, what happened to your face? I noticed several small bruises on his face. Oh no, not his beautiful face, I thought to myself. Oh, this, he said as he brushed his fingers lightly over his bruises. It's nothing. Don't worry about it, Haim. He smiled at me, making me relax. Even though he left me with many questions. Shall we continue where we left off? Somehow, the way he asked me the question embarrassed me slightly. I stood there, not knowing what to say. What is the matter with you, Hinata? He is just like any other human being, I began arguing with myself. Naruto-kun is not like any other human person. There is something about him, something that makes him stand out from any other man I've ever met. Finally, it hit me. Am I really falling in love with the stable boy? Hinata suddenly stopped talking, as if she had an inner dialogue with herself. It even looked like she had stopped breathing. I waved my hand in front of her eyes to get her attention. The only result was her blushing like never before. What is wrong with this girl? I said quietly to myself. It frightened me when she suddenly looked me directly in my eyes with a surprised look, as if she had just learned something frightening. I guess she came to her senses as she said, Shall we go on? I looked at her with a curious look. The next following days were pretty much the same as always, except the fact that I was much clumsier around the princess. A few days ago, I realized that I was falling in love with her, something I absolutely cannot do, no matter what. Every time I spent time with her, I would fall over my own feet, fumble with my words, or say something really embarrassing. I am pretty sure even the horses are laughing at me, they just don't think I know it. To sum it all up, I am one big mess. When the princess wasn't at the stables, I would practice the art of the sword with her cousin Neji, in all secrecy. He wanted to be able to protect her at all given times, but with the way I was feeling about her lately, I wouldn't even allow a fly to sit on her shoulder. However, whenever she was at the stables, we would chat about everything. Well, that is besides my childhood. That wasn't my favorite topic, and I would therefore try to avoid it. The only persons I could talk about my childhood with was Kiba and Shikamaru, but that is because they were a part of it. She would tell me everything about her mother when she was alive. Those were always my favorite stories. It makes me think back on the hugs from my own mother, and the supporting pat on the back from my father. That is somehow the only thing I can remember about them. I remember the last time I saw them, but not how they were as parents or what we did together. The princess's stories make me long for my own family, both the one I lost and the one I will, hopefully, create myself one day. I am already 17 years old, almost the age to marry, but the one I want to marry is not available for me. I may be a stable boy for the royal household, but that is what I will ever be. The princess is of a royal and well-respected family, so she is expected to marry one of such title as well. The thought of that happening, of someone touching my princess wasing me. I wish I could take her hand and escape from this kingdom. To a place where no one knew us, especially her. A place with no rules and expectations from either people close to us or reality. I stopped living in my dream world when a gentle hand touched my arm. My eyes met a pair of beautiful lavender-colored ones. I swear on my horse that those eyes could take you anywhere. I could see that his thoughts were elsewhere as I had finished my story. I slightly touched his arm to get him back to reality. His eyes met mine immediately and we both began to blush. Naruto-kun had been working here for a few months already. It has been months where there hasn't been one single week where I haven't visited him whenever I had time, at least once a week. I still haven't figured out what it is about him that is so magnetic. His smile could save me from any bad day my father decided to give me. His friendly way to talking to everyone he meets, no matter position in this madhouse. Or the way he makes me feel like a human being instead of a princess of the kingdom Konohagakure. To be completely honest, I didn't feel like one day ruling this country. At least not the way my father seemed to rule it. I believe that Neji would make a much better king than I would ever be a queen. I just want to rule my life the way I want. I want to be a normal 17-year-old girl. I want to go to the town, outside these castle walls, together with Sakura, Ino and Tenten. But no matter how many times I ask my father, his answer is always no, and then makes sure my schedule is busy almost every single day. I swear, one day, I will see what the outside world looks like. I managed to smile quickly when she caught my attention. Sorry, Haim. Seems like I spaced out for a short time, huh? She giggled at my comment. It's quite alright, Naruto-kun. I am used to it by now. We both knew I did it far too often, and this probably wasn't the last time that I would do it. His soothing smile and adorable laugh always seemed to calm me down. Where on earth has she been all of my life? Oh, that's right, At the castle, far away from me. Naruto-kun. Yes, Haim. I brushed her father's horse as he had to leave the country for a political matter, later the day. I was thinking. Her voice seemed to become lower in the end of her sentence. I looked at her. She seemed nervous somehow. Would you, this was clearly something that bothered her. Haim, you know that you can ask me anything, right? She looked at me and took a deep breath. Her eyes now looked more determined than ever. Naruto-kun, please show me how it looks outside these walls. She didn't blink once while her eyes was locked on mine. Haim, why you are kidding me, right? She shook her head. I am dead serious, Naruto-kun. Haim, I can't do that. She took my hand and held it tight. Please, Naruto-kun, I am begging of you. I want to see how the people live, how the marketplace works and how people interact with each other. But your father would never allow it. He doesn't have to know. He will be gone for a longer period of time. But what about Neji then? He would certainly not allow me to take you anywhere. She released my hands and slowly walked over to the doorway, saddened by the realization of the overprotectiveness of her from her cousin. I'll figure out something out. I really want to see the world. I couldn't see my Haim saddened by anything. So at that moment, I took a decision I would never forget. Fine. She turned around and looked at me puzzled. I will take you to town. Her face lit up like a candle in the darkness. If you can figure out what to do with Neji. Before I knew it, a pair of arms was wrapped around me with the face of an angel pressed against my chest. I blushed like never before. Haim rarely acted like this. She looked up at me and smiled, but it didn't take her long to realize that she was actually hugging me. She blushed and looked away. I'm sorry. No, it's fine, Ttebeo. There was a brief moment of silence before I spoke up again. Well, I better get back to preparing your father's horse. Alright, I will be going again then. Right. See you later, Naruto-kun. See ya, Haim. We gave each other one last smile before she headed towards the castle. Smooth, came a voice behind me. I looked back startled, only to see my two jerk friends who always shows up unannounced. Geez, what do you guys want? I asked, annoyed as I continued brushing the horse. Ya know, she's a real cutie, but I don't think it is such a good idea to go around and flirt with the princess, Kiba said as he picked up an apple from one of the buckets. I'm not flirting with her. Sure. I bet you just hug every single girl you bump into, Shikamaru continued, followed by a laughing Kiba. Sigh, what do you guys even want? Suddenly the two boys' faces became serious. Actually, Shikamaru began, we have news about him. I can't believe I just hugged him like that. I couldn't forget the feeling of his muscular back and his racing heartbeat, as I walked towards me room. I sure hope I didn't disgust him or anything of the sort. A sudden tap on my shoulder broke me out of my Naruto trance. Eep. Behind me wasn't just one, but all three of my best friends. Sakura, Ino, Tenten, I thought you were with your families today. Nah, we'd much rather be with you, than having our parents nagging us all day, Ino said as she wrapped her arm around my shoulders. Ah, I see, well, it is good to see you again. So, Hinata, what have you been up to? Tenten asked me. Well, now that you mention it, I need your help. They all looked at me confused. I rarely, if not never, asked for their help with anything. We sat down with a cup of tea as I explained to them what I had asked of Naruto-kun. I need your girls' help to distract the staff, especially Neji, while I go to town with Naruto-kun. What? Hinata? That's crazy. Ino blurted out. I know it's crazy, but I just have to see what it is like outside these walls. Hinata, it's not safe out there, Sakura said, worried. I know, that is why Naruto-kun will take me. He knows the town better than anyone else. But Hinata, he is merely a stable boy, how can he protect you from danger? Ino said harshly but worried at the same time. There was a brief moment before I said, I trust Naruto-kun with my life. At that moment, it was the first time I didn't sound like a princess, but as an actual queen of this kingdom. At least that is what Sakura told me some years later, when we looked back on this exact moment. Okay Hinata, leave this to us. Tenten said with a smile so big that it was comforting. Thank you so much. Later that day, we all stood in the courtyard to say goodbye to my father. Hinata, Hanabi, don't do anything you would regret while I am gone. Yes father, we both said as we bowed before him. Shikaku-san will stay behind if any emergency should happen to the kingdom. I will be back in 4 days' time, and with that said, he rode away together with 3 of the best guards. When he was finally out of sight, Hanabi turned to me and said, Hinata-ne-chan, I miss the father from our childhood. I hugged my younger sister tight. Haim told me that she had everything under control, but even so, I still feared what would happen if we got caught. The plan would go as following. I would take Blaze and leave through the main gates, telling the guards that I had royal orders to look for a new horse for the royal family. Kiba would escort the princess out of the castle, the same way I snuck into the castle a few months ago. I would then meet them on a hilltop where I would escort the princess to the town, on the back of my loyal horse. I just don't hope that Haim is dressed in one of her expensive beautiful dresses. I would like to keep this as neutral as possible when in town. As I waited on the hilltop, I thought about how bad an idea this was. If we were caught, I would be accused of abducting the princess and lose my head. But I can only imagine how bad her punishment would be. Oi, Naruto, I heard Kiba's recognizable voice and turned around. Kiba, hi, the sight of Haim blew my mind away. Her long straight blue-black hair had been braided into a long braid resting over her shoulder. Her princess dress had been replaced by a white and light purple short-sleeved shirt with a matching skirt which just barely covered her knees. She looked so stunning as she walked up to me. Beautiful. Her light angelic voice nervously said. I suddenly realized that I had accidentally called her beautiful out loud. I mean, you look irregular, Haim. No, not irregular, odd. Damn it, man. Stop talking. Different. I felt Kiba's hand hit the back of my head. Thanks, man. What I mean, Haim, is that, you look extraordinary. Kiba tried hard not to laugh. The princess looked bashful, for some odd reason, and I, myself, was probably blushing like never before. Well, Kiba started, you two better get going. Before I start laughing my pants off, Akamaru barked in agreement with his owner. I gave Kiba an evil glance as Haim just looked confused. Naruto, come find me when it's time to return. Ya got it, Kiba. He began to walk the other way than us, and I swore I saw him laugh, that jerk. I mounted up on Blaze and offered a helping hand to Haim. Naruto-kun, I am still a bit nervous about riding a horse again, ever since Haim had told me about what happened with her old horse and how it had frightened her. I promised both myself and her that I would help her get over her fear. Don't worry, Haim, you can trust me, nothing would ever happen to you. I smiled reassuringly at her, and even though she hesitated, she took my hand and now sat behind me. However, I hadn't imagined that I would end up in this dangerous situation. Because she was so nervous, she pressed her body close to my back, that including her chest. Her eyes were tightly closed, and arms tightly holding around me. And on top of that, she had the cutest blush across her face. I can't hide the fact that I find the Haim incredibly cute and attractive, so you can imagine my, struggle to hold anything back. Alright, Let's just take it slowly at first. I signaled Blaze to start walking, and I could feel Haim tightening her grip on me as we started moving. After walking for a while, she relaxed a bit more, making my struggle just a tiny bit easier. Haim, try to open your eyes and look at where we are. She slowly opened them and was overwhelmed by the view the world had in store for her. We rode on a road with cornfields on both sides of us and big beautiful trees everywhere. We could see farmers working on the fields with a smile on their faces and children playing with each other with no worries whatsoever. Your father may be strict with you, but he knows how to rule a kingdom. I know, she replied. It made me happy to see her smile. It is the only thing I wish I could use my life to do. We traveled further towards the town. Farmers would smile and wave at us, and Haim would eagerly wave back at them. The sunshine only contributed with making her eyes warm and her smile beautiful and kind. There really was no doubt about it anymore. I was utterly and hopelessly in love with the princess sitting behind me. The road to town was everything I had ever imagined it would be. It was filled with so many wonderful people. I wish I could live out here for the rest of my life, if only I wasn't so unlucky as to have been born into royalty. No, Hinata, only happy thoughts are allowed at this point. When we finally reached the town, I was more than surprised. Never have I seen so many people at one place before. It was incredible. There were people selling everything from a mere apple to a whole cow. We dismounted from Blaze and Naruto-kun gave me a cloak. What is this for? I asked him. I fear that someone will recognize you. You are no ordinary person after all. He blinked at me, something he only did when he teased me. I thanked him and put on the king blue cloak. We walked around for several hours, never letting each other out of sight in the big crowd. We saw a puppet show together with a bunch of kids. We played games, where Naruto would often lose to me, a beginner, and then we shopped for gifts for Sakura and the others in appreciation of their help. After an exciting day, we walked around the streets, each with a stick with different meats on it. Haim, I still think that you were cheating in those games earlier. I couldn't believe that he was still pouting about losing to me. Oh please Naruto-kun, you are just a sore loser, I giggled. Oh yeah, then how about this? I challenge you to rock, paper, scissors, right here, right now. I'll be happy to accept that challenge, my good sir, and as destiny would have wanted it, I won. Even the 5 times that he asked for a rematch. That's it, you are definitely cheating. I swear Naruto-kun, I never cheat. Sure, you just keep telling yourself that. Haim, we both laughed and nearly didn't see the danger ahead of us. Hinata, look out. Before I knew it, I was pinned up against the wall by Naruto-kun, as several horses rode past us in high speed. My heart nearly stopped as I realized how close I was to Naruto-kun. His entire body was pressed up against mine to make room for the riders. I blushed like madly as I could feel his heartbeat racing like a warhorse. He turned towards me with his head merely inches away from mine. Our eyes met and it felt like an eternity before he asked me, "Are you hurt anywhere?" I looked into his ocean blue eyes filled with concern for me. My eyes happened to move down to his lips. Oh, how I wished those lips were even closer to mine than they already were. No, Naruto-kun, I'm fine. There was a brief moment of our eyes connecting before he said, "Good." For a moment it seemed like his face moved closer to mine, but he pulled away and turned around. At that moment, I was sure my heart hadn't stopped as I could feel it beat faster than ever before. Naruto-kun seemed uneasy after that incident, as if he wasn't comfortable in this part of town. Naruto-kun. He didn't seem to react on my voice. Naruto-kun, I asked again as I placed my hand on his arm. This time he certainly reacted, as he seemed surprised by my touch and looked at me. Oh, sorry about that, Haim. Are you alright, Naruto-kun? Yeah, I am completely fine. He gave me a smile, but I could immediately see that it was fake. I stopped walking and made him look at me. Sigh, alright, Heim. As he was just about to tell me, destiny worked its magic once again, as raindrops began to fall from the night sky. What about we find a dry spot first? I know just the place. Without further notice, he took my hand with a smile, and began to run in the direction we were headed. The heavy rain was now falling down on us. Instead of stopping at one of the many inns we ran past, he led me to what looked like an old shed or stable. Naruto-kun, what are we doing here? He fired up the old worn-out fireplace and said, "Welcome to my humble home." She seemed awfully surprised when I told her that this was my home. Is this where you used to live? Yup. This place has served me well for the past 11 years. She didn't say much, instead she just looked around with a somewhat sad look. I know this probably isn't what you had imagined that I lived in. I opened my bag and found some blankets and motioned for her to come closer. Well, it certainly isn't where I imagined you'd come from. You are the only one to know of this place, besides Kiba and Shikamaru, I told her as I took her wet cloak and wrapped the blanket around her. What about your family? It was the one question I had hoped she would never ask me, but deep down I knew I couldn't avoid answering her. I don't have any, I finally told her. She gasped in surprise. She placed her hand in mine and her eyes searched for mine. I'm so sorry, Naruto-kun. I looked at her and smiled. Nah, it's fine, Heim. Can I ask, what happened? Maybe tomorrow. I'm not that interested in a real moving story right now. I gave her another smile, perhaps as an apology, or to lighten up the mood, I am not quite sure to this day. When she finally smiled and nodded in approval, I lightly squeezed her hand in mine, and returned to keeping the fire alive. We talked about her first trip outside the castle walls, and her day as a normal young woman. A day with no guards and with no responsibility as the princess. There are so many different types of people in this town, she said excitedly. Yeah, but not all of them are good people, I replied her. She looked at me with puzzled eyes. People in this town knows not to mess with me, that's why we haven't met said type of people today. She looked amazed at me before she looked down and blushed. Otherwise, I would have you to protect me, right? She looked shyly at me. Damn it, why does she have to be so freakishly cute? I gulped before answering her with my own blush spread across my face. Oh, of course. I would protect you with my life. I looked away in embarrassment when I heard her giggle. Good. I appreciate it. I laughed together with her before I felt my bladder begin to complain. I'll be back in just a whoa. Before I could finish my sentence, she suddenly screamed and hugged me with such a surprising power that I lost my balance. What happened, Hinata? I saw something move in the corner. I looked over at said corner and smiled. Don't worry, it's just a rat. As I said the word, rat, she screamed again and held my body even tighter. Don't worry, Heim, it's harmless, it is just seeking shelter from the rain just like us. It won't do you any harm. Really? I promise you. She slowly lifted her head so I could see the tears in her eyes. I smiled and lifted my finger to wipe them away. At that moment I realized what position we laid in, and now it wasn't my bladder who started to complain. She laid on top of me with her whole body pressed down on my own. We just looked at each other, none of us saying a single word. I could feel her heart racing. Was she perhaps just as nervous as I was? Suddenly I lost all control over my body. It was no longer my head pulling the strings to my every move, but my heart was. I moved my hand to her cheek and gently cupped it, my other hand moving to the back of her neck. Naruto-kun, I didn't allow her to say another word as I moved my head and closed the gap between our lips. This feeling is not one that I wish to forget. As our lips parted, a second didn't go by before I felt her lips on mine again. I switched our position so that I was the one to lay on top of her. I kissed her again, and again, and again, each kiss becoming less and less awkward. As we broke apart, we both tried to catch our breaths. I had my weight resting on my arms so that I wouldn't crush her, as she had her hands on my chest. This isn't right, we can't, I said, saddened and out of breath. My lips seemed to have no desire of leaving his, as we laid in front of the fireplace, as the rain kept pouring down outside. My hands were still resting on his broad chest as our kisses became more and more passionate. My whole body shook, not from the cold but from mere nervousness. This was my first time being in this kind of position, for not to mention situation, with any man, and now my head had to comprehend that the man I was doing this with was Naruto-kun. I could tell that he was nervous too, as I noticed he didn't know what to do or where to place his hands. Harem, he suddenly said. My heart skipped a beat. I don't know how long I can hold myself back, he said in between kisses. I moved my hands to his face and made him look at me. Naruto-kun, you don't need to hold back. I was already panting lightly as there wasn't much time to breathe in between the kisses, and from the very atmosphere we had created. He gave me a smile before he pecked my lips and whispered, "Thank you." Instead of conquering my lips, which he had proven himself to be quite good at, his mouth was busy leaving small wet marks on my neck up towards my ear. As his mouth worked its magic, his hands had suddenly found a purpose. As he rested his weight on his left arm, his left hand had begun caressing my thigh. All the way from the knee to my hip. I enjoyed the attention too much to realize the small moans which had escaped from my mouth. But I knew that he had heard them. I could feel his lips smile against my skin and he whispered lightly into my ear. You like that? The sweet sound of his voice sent shivers down my whole body, and made me incapable of connecting any sounds into words, resulting in only a few nods with my head. He carefully bit my earlobe and continued to kiss me down my neck and to my collarbones. His hand had traveled further up my body and now also gave attention to my waist and stomach. I still couldn't utter a single word or request. The only way I could tell him what I wanted was to show him. I took my hand on his and led it further up, just barely for him to touch my. I smiled as I saw his sudden red face, as if he had completely lost track of what he was doing. I sat up quickly to make his lips mine once again. It seemed to work, breaking him out of his trance, as he once again kissed me with more passion than ever before. He carefully laid me all the way down again and began to slowly touch my, first with his fingers, and short after his whole hand, covering whatever skin he could. I let out a louder moan as I felt a pleasure I've never felt in my whole life. He took his hand out from underneath my shirt and started to fumble with the laces which kept the shirt in place. He was faster than I had expected. I now laid with my whole upper body exposed to the man on top of me. I felt embarrassed by his gaze of awe as he looked at me. I tried to hide my but he took my hands and pinned them down. My God, you are beautiful, Harem. The look in his eyes showed no signs of pure lust, but more like happiness and most of all, love. Really, you are the most beautiful living being I have ever set my eyes upon in my whole life. You really think so? Hearing those words from Naruto-kun brought me so much happiness that I could barely comprehend it. I've thought so, ever since the day I cast my eyes on you for the first time. Oh, Naruto-kun. I felt tears slowly began to take form in my eyes. He bent down, however, and kissed them away. I love you, Hinata, he finally whispered to me. I looked in his eyes for any signs of lie, but there was none. I love you too, Naruto-kun. As I said those words to him, I felt that my heart began to dance. It was true, I loved him more than anything in this world. I knew that my feeling for him were so special that I couldn't put my finger on it, but for it to be this strong a love was unbelievable, even to me. He began to kiss me once again, with his hands releasing mine as he went to explore the new world that had been exposed to him. His right hand carefully cupped one of my s. He squeezed it lightly as he began to kiss the skin of the other. It sent chills down my spine as I could feel his breath against my bare, and very sensitive, skin. Suddenly I felt a slight on my nipple and released the moan I had tried my best to hold back. Naruto-kun, who used my moaning as a fuel, became more secure in how and where to touch me. His hands changed position so that both my s were getting equally as much attention. As he kissed my whole body, from stomach to lips, he gracefully slid his hand underneath my skirt and gently stroked what made me a woman. Yanoheim, these are in the way of my business, he said as he grinned. I giggled at his teasing moment, and without further notice, he had pulled my underpants completely off. He continued to please me to the fullest as he began to play with my womanhood. He slowly found the entrance and slid one of his fingers inside. I had a ticklish feeling inside of me, that ran all the way up to my head as he moved his fingers inside of me. He changed the pace from slow to fast, and then slow again, which drove me mad with pleasure. I wanted more than this, and he wasn't the only one with funny comments. Naruto-kun, I said in between my moans. Yes, my princess. His eyes was locked on mine while he continued to tease me. Why is it that I am the only one, without any clothes on? Oh Haim, that's not true, you still have your pretty skirt on, he blinked. You win this round Naruto-kun. But I understand a hint when I get one. With that said, he pulled his fingers out, much to my disapproval, but at the same time, I wanted to be the most intimate I could be with him. With eyes locked entirely on my love in front of me, I saw how his muscular torso was exposed to me, and how he threw both his shirt and pants as far away as possible. The next piece of clothing to be removed was the thing that would officially connect us as one. I had never seen one before, and to be honest, I wondered if it would even fit. As he exposed it to me, I couldn't take my eyes away from it. It was nothing like I had ever seen before. I was so curious about it that I didn't think of how Naruto-kun would react if I touched it. I quickly found the answer however. As I took a careful but firm grip around it, it was as if he was surprised by a ghost, since he came with a big jolt with his whole body. Hinata. I looked at him puzzled. What had I done? Could it really be that sensitive? Be careful Haim, you are playing with fire. His face became completely determined, for what I would soon find out. I was suddenly on my back again with Naruto-kun pressed completely against me. This is definitely in the way, he said as he pulled my skirt off. We were both as we could be and stared into each other's eyes. He caressed my chest with his fingers before he moved them to my back to untie my hairband. He began to kiss me again and slowly moved his whole body back and forth. This was a whole new feeling of pleasure. I could feel his warm hard members slide up and down against my entrance. He hadn't tried to put it in, he had just left it there, to please, and tease, me. As if it was a born instinct, I bent my knees and spread my legs as much as possible. I was no longer in control of my body. My hands began to search for something to hold on to. One hand found his back, and the other found his bottom. I bore my fingers into his skin as I couldn't handle the amount of pleasure that my body received. My lower abdomen began to follow his movements and out moaning and panting became louder and faster, together with the pace we moved in. I held him tight and let out one big moan as I felt a certain satisfaction from my womanly side. I panted like crazy, but the show wasn't over. Ready for round 2? He whispered into my ear. I am pretty sure that my ear has become my weak spot after all of this. I managed to utter a yes in between my heavy panting. Naruto-kun took his hand and led his member to the entrance of our completion. He slowly pushed it in. I flinched as the pain I had feared would come struck me. Try to relax, Hinata. I tried to take deep breaths as I could feel it pushing in more and more. When it was finally all the way in, we both let out a very satisfied moan. We will just take this nice and easy, okay, Hinata? I nodded in agreement to his suggestion. He slowly began to move his lower body back and forth repeatedly. This was a feeling of pleasure that I had never imagined that I would experience. My body began to follow his movement. To hear Naruto-kun moan like that in pure pleasure only made the whole experience too much better. Our movements became much faster and he hit spots I would never have imagined I would react on. By now, my legs had been wrapped around his body. It was amazing how my different leg positions could help increasing this feeling that I never wanted to stop. Suddenly he took my legs and carefully pushed them towards me. This was the position I never wanted to escape from. Hinata, you feel so good around me, he managed to say during his heavy panting and loud moaning. Naruto-kun, I could barely speak. I can't hold it in anymore, Hinata. Me neither, Naruto-kun. Let's do it together, okay? Yes, I practically shouted as he hit a soft spot which made my words come out louder than intended. Naruto-kun began to thrust his member in harder than before. Hinata, here it comes. Me too. And as on cue, we had succeeded in mixing our separate fluids together. I could feel as his member would pump out its content inside of me as Naruto-kun's body crashed on top of mine. Our bodies were covered in sweat, but we didn't care even one bit. I love you, Hinata, he said as he kissed me repeatedly. For Hinata to suddenly ask for our help would surely cause trouble. We've had no time to figure out any cover-up stories or anything to help us get through this day, which will result in a completely improvised and chaotic day. 8 a.m. Breakfast. Hinata was still at the castle in the morning, to avoid as much suspicion as possible. Honestly, if the princess didn't show up when dinner was served, a whole search party would be sent throughout the kingdom to find her. We peeked from the slightly open door as Hinata joyfully ate her breakfast with Neji and Hanabi. What makes you in such a good mood today? Neji asked her. Oh. I just woke up with the right leg first, I guess. Hinata was the worst liar in the history of our kingdom Surveya, at least what we know of, but somehow she pulled this one off. Or so we thought. Neji looked curiously at Hinata but didn't ask any further questions. 9:30 a.m. 1.5 hours before she was to meet up with the stable kid. Sakura and I helped her with her clothes and hair before Kiba came to get her. Tenten stood guard at the door and listened if anyone would step before her door. Hinata, are you sure this is a good idea? I asked her while putting the final touches to her braid. Probably not, but it is something I just have to do. I sighed in defeat. She was completely right. Someone is coming, Tenten said, making us hurry to cover up Hinata's outfit. Hinata-ne-chan, Hanabi called as she knocked the door. Why are you still under the covers? And why is our hair so nicely braided? Thank you for the compliment, Hanabi, I thought to myself as she commented the braid. Can you keep a big secret, Hanabi? Hinata asked her in all seriousness. She sat down on her older sister's bed. Sure. Hinata pulled the covers away to reveal her new and very different outfit. What on earth are you wearing? Hanabi started laughing. Hanabi. Hinata scolded her. Sorry. You look good, just different. Geez. So why are you wearing that outfit anyway? Because I am going into town with Naruto-kun. What? Exactly our reaction, I mumbled to Sakura, who only nodded in agreement. Why would you do that? Father will be furious when he finds out. But he won't, right, Hanabi? No one will find out about this. Hanabi looked surprised at her sister, who rarely spoke so resolute about her decisions. Right. Of course. Thank you, Tenten. 3 p.m. and Hinata have now been away for 4 hours. We all sat in her room together with Shikamaru and Kiba, who had helped Hinata leave the castle. I am telling you guys, Kiba began. Those two will totally hook up. What? What makes you think that? Ino spurted out. Please, those two couldn't look away from each other for even a second. That doesn't mean anything, Ino continued. Kiba might have a point. I know both of them very well and they have never acted like this with anyone else in their lives before, Shikamaru said. Please, like boys have any idea what love is, Sakura contributed to the topic. Come on. Don't pretend like you've never looked at me like that, Kiba smirked. We all looked at him and said in unison. Never. And threw pillows at him. Right. I deserved that one. We were all interrupted by 3 knocks on the door. Hinata-sama, is everything all right in there? It was Neji's voice who spoke from the other side of the door. We all panicked. Quickly, out the window, Sakura whispered to Kiba and Shikamaru. While she tried to help them escape the possible chaos, Ino and I hurried outside to deal with Neji. Ah, Neji. What brings you here? I asked very nervously. I heard some noises from Hinata-sama's room and thought that something might be wrong since I haven't seen her since breakfast. Oh, that's because. Cramps. Ino suddenly yelled out. Cramps? Neji looked at us in wonder. Right. She has cramps, I played along. I looked at Neji who seemed quite skeptical about everything we said. Neji, why don't you and I go practice our weapon skills in the courtyard? Everyone knew I was utterly amazed by weapons, but who wouldn't be when you grow up in a family of blacksmiths? Sure, Neji replied me, still believing that we were hiding something. Ino, 7 p.m. and the rest of the day have gone smoothly. It seemed like our excuse seemed to work, even though it was hard to keep the maids from doing their job. The only problem ahead of us was the time for us to leave Hinata's room and head for our own to go to sleep. Luckily, it would be a lot harder for us if King Hiashi was here, but since he wasn't, we could rest more easily. A sudden knock on the door made us panic. We looked at each other not knowing what to do. It knocked again. I got up the courage and walked to the door and slightly opened it. Why yes. Ino, I wish to speak with Hinata-sama. Oh crap, it was Neji. Ooh well, you see, she just fell asleep and we really don't want to wake her up, I said with an awkward smile. Then answer me this, where is Naruto? This time, Sakura and Tenten came to aid me in trying to lie to Neji, the genius in the royal family. Isn't he at the stables? Tenten asked. No, he is not. A small ray of sunshine made my eyes twitch and open slowly. I looked around the room I laid in and thought to myself. Where am I? I have never been good at waking up early unless it was necessary. I rubbed my eyes as I heard a small groan. In surprise, I looked at my right and noticed the princess with her head on my chest and her body cuddled up to me. Sudden flashbacks ran through my head of yesterday and especially last night. What the hell did you do with the princess, you big idiot? I panicked, until I remembered how the princess and I confessed our feelings for each other. Flashback. My God, you are beautiful, Haim. I looked at her with nothing but love. My desires to give into my lust had disappeared for this moment alone. Really? You are the most beautiful living being I have ever set my eyes upon in my whole life. You really think so? She smiled as if she didn't believe what I was saying and needed me to confirm it once more. I've thought so, ever since the day I cast my eyes on you for the first time. Oh, Naruto-kun. I could see her tears begin to take shape in the hook of her eyes, so I slowly bent down and kissed them away. I love you, Hinata, I finally whispered to her. This was the truth I had held in for so long. I've loved her from the moment I met her, and now I've finally realized it. I love you too, Naruto-kun. End of flashback. I smiled at how peaceful she looked when asleep. That was until I noticed how neither of us had any clothes on. My head flushed as I tried to figure out what to do. Sure enough, we had been as intimate as two people can be, but that doesn't change the fact that this was the princess, and how wonderful her body was indeed. Naruto-kun, I could see that she was slowly waking up. I held her tight and decided to have some fun with her, by pretending to be asleep. I felt something strong hold me tighter, so I decided to open my eyes to see what it was. What my eyes met, however, was the sleeping face of Naruto-kun. I blushed immediately, as I never would have thought I would be this close to him, to any man. Then yesterday came back to me, like a slap to the face. I can't believe that happened, I thought to myself. I was happy though. I truly did love him with all of my heart. I smiled as I traced his whisker-marked cheeks with my fingers. I love you, I whispered. Prove it. Suddenly his lips had conquered mine and I could only stare in surprise. As our lips parted, he opened his eyes and looked deep into mine while smiling. Good morning, Hinata. I blushed as he called me by my name. It would probably get some time to get used to. Don't surprise me like that, I stuttered. I'm sorry, my princess. I just couldn't help it, he said teasingly before he kissed my forehead. I will go find something for us to eat. Just as he was about to get up, I said. Naruto-kun, wait. And just like that, it was my turn to kiss him. That was for before. Hey, thanks, I certainly deserved that. He got up from where we had slept and I quickly realized that he had no clothes on. Eep. I hid my face in my hands. I heard a chuckle from Naruto-kun before he said, silly girl. While he went out to fetch us something to eat, I hurried to get dressed again before his return. Flashbacks from yesterday kept running through my head. No words could describe the happiness I felt from this situation. I was so glad I made Naruto-kun take me to the village. Every second I spend with him makes my heart beat so fast, like a wild horse on the meadows. All my worries and unpleasant feelings disappear completely whenever I am in his presence. I wish I could be next to him for the rest of my life, holding his hand. But father would never allow it. My thoughts were cut off when I heard noises outside. I had hoped that it was Naruto-kun who had returned, but sadly, that was not the case. I wonder what Hinata would like for breakfast. After I've begun my work at the castle, I had begun to earn more money in a week than I've ever had in my lifetime. I had just paid for some bread as I felt an unpleasant feeling I haven't felt since childhood. Hinata. I quickly mounted up on Blaze and hurried back to where Hinata was. I better not be late. True enough, 3 horses stood outside the shed, but what troubled me the most was the cries from Hinata. I kicked in the door and saw how she was trapped in the corner by 2 brutes. What the hell do you think you are doing? Naruto-kun. Hinata cried. Well, look what we have here, one of the 2 brutes said. Get away from her, I growled. Oh, so puppy wants to play. The other brute shouted as he charged towards me. I dodged with ease, and gave him a kick to the neck, knocking him directly into the floor. Don't think I will let you get away with making her cry. My body started to move on its own as I fought against the 2 brutes. I let my rage take over and I couldn't stop. The only thing which snapped me out of this madness was Hinata's crying shout of my name, begging me to comfort her. She didn't need to say any words for me to figure that out. I ran over to her and hugged her tightly. I cupped her cheeks and searched for any kind of harm that they might have done her. Are you hurt anywhere? I asked her as my eyes met hers, filled with tears. I'm fine. Did they do anything to you? No, they just walked in and started moving towards me, she said, still crying, and clearly shaken from fear. Those bastards. I held her tight to my body. I see your rage still gets the better of you. I looked towards the door where the new voice came from. I've heard that voice before. A mysterious man stood in the door with a dark hooded cape on. As he stepped into the light, I could see his brown boots with detailed artwork done to them. He wore dark brown pants with a white shirt loosely tucked into them. Lastly, he had his sword sheathed in his black belt. It's been a while. Naruto. As he grinned, I knew exactly who he was. Sasuke. What do you want? I shouted, still holding Hinata. Idiot. I am not here for you. He took his gaze away from me and looked at the girl in my arms. I am here for her, he said and pointed directly at Hinata. My eyes widened and I shouted. You stay the hell away from Hinata. Hey, I'll see you soon, Kyuubi, and with that said, he disappeared. There was a moment of silence.